Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello and welcome. My name is Alison Stewart and I'm your host for this episode of Cut the Crop. And today we're going to be talking to Owen Gibson. Welcome, Owen.
Thank you, Alison.
Owen is one of the FAR's researchers, and we're going to be talking about herbicides and weed management. And before we talk about the work that FAR has been doing, we're just going to talk about some of the issues around supply chain that we've been hearing about from the industry over the last couple of weeks. So apparently there are some problems with being able to get hold of some key herbicides.
Yes, especially glyphosate and glufosinate, or Roundup and Buster.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk at the minute in the US about supply shortages, and farmers here in New Zealand are starting to make rumours about this. We've been talking to a couple of the major chemical companies that supply these products, and they have told us that we shouldn't be limited this year in supply. We may have issues of getting the product here on time or when we exactly need it, but if everyone sticks to what they have planned to use, we should be okay. But it's really been a perfect storm, and it's a whole range of factors that has caused these problems. We've got manufacturing problems in China that reduce manufacturing of key ingredients, or especially the generic products that are getting produced over there, being sent here as a complete product. They have been limited with going-ons in China, Winter Olympics for one. We've got COVID-19, labour shortages. We can't find people in the US to load trucks. Shipping, ports are congested. We can't get stuff out of the ports. And then we actually had the flooding in the Mississippi Delta that has put a dampener. Some of the key plants that produce these raw ingredients have been out of production for a little bit. We're all up and running now, but it's all just worked in together to create some of these shortages that people may have been hearing about.
Yeah, and it's actually not just herbicides, is it? I mean, fungicides, I've been hearing rumours that, some growers have been ordering their, sort of fungicide sort of products, a year in advance now because they're worried about being able to get, availability.
I think, without knowing for certain, but I say it's the shortages, especially from COVID-19. It's like the supply getting here, the shipping, the labour shortages, getting them on trucks, getting them across the country. You're hearing about it constantly of products getting left on docks. The ships go without, it's a whole range of issues that are causing these shortages.
What's the best thing for growers to be doing then to make sure that they're not caught out by this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is having a plan. You need to have a plan. You need to know where you're going to be applying these herbicides, so you can make sure that you've got the right amount. We need to know. The problem may come where if people don't plan right, they purchase the amount they think they need, but they're short and they're trying to get extra chemical. That is where we'll probably see a real limit in supply. So if you don't plan right and get the amount that you need first up, that's where we could see problems. So it's knowing where you're putting it, managing our herbicides as best we can, getting the glyphosate onto the paddocks early while weeds are small, not allowing them to go and get big and then having to use high rates to get a good dieback. And then I think this is a really good opportunity for New Zealand farmers to actually think, how reliant we are on glyphosate and what could we do to still run a really good system if we didn't have access to it for a season or two, if something happened. So, some of these systems that use a really high amount of glyphosate, really min-till, or systems with a lot of cover crops, maybe you can think of going back to pulling the plough out of a shed, or, we just have to, you can't be stuck in one single plan to make sure it's all going to go right. So it's been flexible, I think.
Yeah. And then, arable farmers have always been good. They've been responding to external risks, But it's interesting because, there's so many people saying you shouldn't plough, you should do no-till, you should use cover crops. But the reality is that then opens up this risk of not being able to access glyphosate. So there's all sorts of perverse outcomes out there, depending on, this push to sort of like focus on all or nothing. When in fact, what we should be doing is make sure that you are agile and that you have multiple options available to you.
Correct. We've got to make sure that all these tools in a toolbox we can utilise when we need to.
Yeah.
And then it's managing the herbicides that we do have, that making sure we're getting the best out of it. It's not just our glyphosate or our pre-knockdowns, it's our pre-emerge. Our whole system should be based around these pre-emergent herbicides with or residual herbicides, that to get the best out of them. And this year has been a really good example that most farmers that we've talked to have said that they've got the best control out of our Firebird or our Sakura products.
You've obviously got this herbicide screening trial at Chertsey, so tell us more about what's coming out of that.
Well, it's a really great trial we've had, this herbicide screening trial. It's something that FAR had previously run for quite a few seasons, but we haven't done it for the last 4 years. But with new herbicides coming in that we hadn't put through this trial, we decided to run it again. And essentially, it's a grass weed control screening trial. And what we run is a whole range of different grass weeds in 4 rows, and then we apply different herbicides over all of them in a block with a special boom that sprays in a log pattern. So we start at 2 times label rate, and then by the time we get to the end of the plot, we're down to about 10% of active ingredient going on the plot. And we do sampling at 2 times label rate, half rate, and quarter rate, and to see how good the product is at each different spot. And then we can build up really well to see, what rates are working best and what weed species, or how hard herbicide is on a cereal or wheat or a barley. So we've run that this year with 14 different herbicides, and we've got some results that we'd love to share with everyone.
Yeah, okay. So you've got some slides that you're going to put up, and you're going to sort of talk the listeners through the key results. So go for it.
Well, so in this first photo, you can see this is our old standard. This is Gardaprim and Glean. So we started at 3 litres Gardaprim plus Glean at 40 grams. So this is our 2 times label rate. And this was the FAR standard sort of 10 to 15 years ago of what most farmers, well, a lot of farmers would have been putting on their fields. As you can see, we've got some limitations. We're weak on hairgrass and bromes. We've got very good control of fumitree and poa, but we also had limitations on ryegrass control. What we may have done previously is put, Sencor into the system to clean up our bromes, especially. But that can be a bit risky, and we did see some damage to cereals back when we were using this product. But if we move to the next photo, which is the new industry standard, or was the new industry standard, or Firebird, which is the diflufenican plus flufenicet. This has given us great control. We've got good ryegrass control, even though we must be mindful that ryegrass is not actually labelled for Firebird, but we were getting good control. Excellent hairgrass control. And it's something that we have to realise in all our herbicides, there's actually only 3 herbicides that are labelled for hairgrass, which is our Firebird, our Sakura, and our Curb. So Firebird's been doing a great job. We're limited on bromes. The bromus species, they can become a problem. But we get excellent broadleaf control. Fumitree, we've always been weak on fumitree, and anyone using Firebird would know that fumitree can escape that chemical. So what's after Firebird? Well, if we move to the next slide, we've got Sakura. So this was the new product after Firebird, the new kid on the block, to say, which just gave us really everything we had with Firebird, but it gave us a little bit more ryegrass control. Then The only thing is it's a wee bit expensive compared to some of these other treatments, but it's a great tool, and it's something that we need to make sure that we utilise correctly to keep in our arsenal. So what can we do to make these products work even better? So if we can work them together and get a bit of a synergistic relationship between them, that's how we can start getting much better control. So if we move to the next photo, and we've got Firebird plus Gardaprim. So if we're using Firebird but we add a triazine herbicide to these, you can see, as in the photo, we're getting a lot better broadleaf control. And if you look at either of them alone, they don't do as good in either one. So if we're putting them together, we're getting much better control. So it's a great idea if you got a few grass weeds in there, or you got the hairgrass problem and you want to combat it, but you need to get your broadleaves under control. Gardaprim would be a great option. So in here we've got Firebird at 1 litre and Gardaprim 3 litres, and that is the 2 times rate. And as you look in the photo moving down, that's where you're moving down between the rates right down to the end of a plot, which we're getting to roughly 10%. So what else can we do? We've got these starting to move in, getting a bit of a synergistic approach. How about we start using a sequence to get as good as control as we can? So if we move to the next photo, this is Avidex. Avidex is a very old chemical that's been around for a long time. We've got some limitations with Avidex. As you can see in the photo, it doesn't look very good. It's pretty messy. But then if we can add Avidex with a product, say Secura, if we move to the next photo, it can show us what it can do for us. And one of the best things about using another product like Avidex to our new herbicides, Secura or Firebird, it gives us time. So these modern pre-emerge herbicides need moisture to activate to get the best out of them. Typically, they're recommended to get 10 mils of either irrigation or rainfall to really activate and start killing the weeds. But in situations like we've seen in previous years, we've had enough moisture to germinate weeds, but not enough moisture to activate the chemical. And then we can get an early weed strike that we can't control with our pre-emerge, and then we're battling them for the rest of the season. But if we add a product like Avidex, which has got a different mode of control, it actually, once it's sprayed on, but then you have to incorporate it with a light harrowing or a light cultivation, it actually turns into a gas, and that gas is taken up by the plant's coleoptile while it's emerging, and that's how it kills the weed species. But what it does, it gives us time for waiting for moisture to come for activating the other herbicides. And then I think one of the biggest things we have to remember is that none of these is a one-hit wonder product. So we still need to realise that we may or probably will have to come in with a post-emerge herbicide. So if we move to the next photo, this is Orphello at 2 litres, which is our 2 times label rate, which is at the very top of this, closest to the camera. And moving down, you can see how it's shifting between the different rates. One thing with Orphello, we're weak on hairgrass and also weak on the bromus species. So if it was bromes that we're chasing, you need to go on with something, say a Rexade, which is a lot better on bromes. But it's great on grass, oats and broadleaves. And then the last photo we got here, this is Twister or IPU, another old chemistry. So we've got the 2 times rate of 6 litres a hectare. And we're quite surprised by this, looking at the results we got. We're getting excellent hairgrass control, which in a post-emerge product is, that's something that we really need to keep in our toolbox, I think, and remember that we can get some control if we can get to the hairgrass early enough with a product like an IPU or a Twister in our case. We had no brome control and it was limited on broadleaves, but we did get some really good ryegrass control. So some all exciting stuff coming out of the research that FAR's conducting.
Yeah. So I guess, lots of interesting results. What would be the key take-home messages then from this trial that's been conducted?
So for this trial and other trials that we've run, and even trials we've talked to other organisations about, is there's no silver bullet. We have to plan our herbicide application, and we have to work with different chemicals to get the best control we can. So going in with an Avidex pre-plant and incorporating it to get a bit of giving us some insurance if we don't get that moisture to activate our pre-emerge herbicides, and then monitoring our crops, making sure we get out into the field, have a look. If we get misses or if we got escapes of weeds coming through, we need to know that early. And if we can get in there with a post-emerge herbicide early, we've got a far better rate of control than we would otherwise. So I think it's just planning, knowing what you're going to do and not being stuck with a single application, and being flexible on what we can apply depending on what weeds are present.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, of course, there's that whole risk of resistance and everything that you have to take into account as well. So it's not just mixing and matching, different products. You've got to think through the resistance categories as well.
Sure, and something like production-wise is a great tool to monitor our modes of action that we're applying, so we're not doubling up with the mode of actions in the same year, or it's more so we're not using that same mode of action year in, year out on the same paddock, that we are switching it up. So these are all tools we need to be using to get the best out of the chemistry we have.
Yeah, and let's just hope that we continue to have that chemistry available. Yes. Thanks very much, Owen. That was really informative. And thank you very much, listeners. Have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.